Today to the man I love best, and I believe I am the very happiest girl in Japan. The happiest girl indeed, for she is indeed to be envied who has attained happiness in all but perfection. In all but perfection? Well, dear, it can't be denied that the fact that your husband is to be beheaded in a month is, in its way, a drawback. It does seem to take the top off it, you know.
I don't know about that. It all depends.
At all events, he will find it a drawback.
Not necessarily. Bless you, it all depends.
I think it very indelicate of you to refer to such a subject on such a day. If my married happiness is to be
cut short?
Cut short in a month. Can you let me forget it?
Yum yum in tears, and on her wedding morn.
I've been reminding me that in a month you're to be beheaded.
Yes, we've been reminding her that you're to be beheaded.
It's quite true, you know. You are to be beheaded.
How some bridegrooms would be depressed by this sort of thing. A month? Well, what's a month? Bah, these divisions of time are purely arbitrary. Who says that 24 hours make a day?
There's a popular impression to that effect.
Then we'll efface it. We'll call each second a minute, each minute an hour, each hour a day, and each day a year. At that rate, we've about 30 years of married happiness before us.
And at that rate, this interview has already lasted 4 hours and 3/4.
Silly little cuckoo.
Yes. How time flies when one is thoroughly enjoying oneself.
That's the way to look at it. Don't let's be downhearted. There's a silver lining to every cloud.
Certainly. Let's be perfectly happy.
By all means, let's thoroughly enjoy ourselves.
It's absurd to cry.
Quite ridiculous.
Joyous are we, give thee greeting. Whither art thou fleeting? Fickle moment, prithee stay. Fickle moment, prithee stay. What though mortal joys be hollow?
Pleasures come if sorrows follow.
Though the tossing sound thereof, and ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, yet until the shadows fall over one and over all. Sing a merry madrigal, sing a merry madrigal. La 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 Though the hours are surely creeping, little need for woeful weeping, till the sad sundown is near, till the sad sundown is near. All must sip the cup of sorrow,
I today and thou tomorrow.
this the close of every sadly song. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. What though solemn shadows fall, sooner or later over all. Sing a merry madrigal, sing a merry madrigal. La 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 Well, I hope you are getting on pretty comfortably. Oh, yes. There's only one drawback to our happiness, the reflection that it can only be enjoyed at the expense of your peace of mind. How good of you to think of that!
We can't help thinking how miserable we are making you. For instance, this sort of thing must be perfect torture to you.
It's most unpleasant. Most unpleasant. I suppose we can't even sit like this without causing you serious inconvenience. It's particularly disagreeable to me. It must be. But come, look at its bright side. In a month, she will be yours.
My darling.
Thank you, my boy, for the kind thought that prompted the suggestion. But it's no use deluding oneself with false hopes, etc.
What do you mean?
My child, my poor child. How shall I break it to her? My little bride that was to have been.
Was to have been?
Yes, you never can be mine. What?
I'm so glad!
I've just ascertained that by the Mikado's law, when a married man is beheaded, his wife is buried alive.
Buried alive?
Buried alive. It's a most unpleasant death. But whom did you get that from? Oh, from Pooh-Bah. He's my solicitor.
But he may be mistaken.
So I thought. So I consulted the Attorney General, the Lord Chief Justice, the Master of the Rolls, the Judge Ordinary, and the Lord Chancellor. They're all of the same opinion. Never knew such unanimity on a point of law in my life. But stop a bit. This law has never been put in force. Not yet. You see, flirting is the only crime punishable with decapitation, and married men never flirt. Of course they don't. I quite forgot that. Well, I suppose I may take it that my dream of happiness is at an end.
Darling, I don't want to appear selfish, and I love you with all my heart. I don't suppose I shall ever love anybody else half as much, but when I agreed to marry you on my own, I had no idea, Pet, that I should have to be buried alive in a month.
Nor I. It's the very first I've heard of it.
It makes a difference, doesn't it?
It does make a difference, of course.
You see, burial alive, it's such a stuffy death.
I call it a beast of a death.
You see my difficulty, don't you?
Yes, and I see my own. If I insist on your carrying out your promise, I doom you to a hideous death. If I release you, you marry Ko-Ko at once.
Here's a howdy-do, if I marry you. When your time has come to perish, then the maiden whom you cherish must be slaughtered too. Here's a howdy-do, here's a howdy-do.
Here's a pretty mess, in a month or less. I must die without a wedding, let the bitter tears I'm shedding witness my distress. Here's a pretty mess, here's a pretty mess. Here's a state of things, to her life she clings. Matrimonial devotion doesn't seem to suit her notion, burial it brings. Here's a state of things, here's a state of things. With a passion that's intense I worship and adore, but the laws of common sense we wanted to ignore. If what he says is true, 'tis death to marry you. Here's a pretty state of things, here's a pretty howdy-do. Here's a pretty state of things, a pretty state of things. Here's a howdy-do, here's a howdy-do. For if what he says is true, I cannot marry you. Here's a pretty state of things. Here's a pretty howdy-do. My poor boy, I'm really very sorry for you. Thanks, old fellow. I'm sure you are. You see, I'm quite helpless. I quite see that. I can't conceive anything more distressing than to have one's marriage broken off at the last moment. But you shan't be disappointed of a wedding. You shall come to mine. It's awfully kind of you, but that's impossible. Why so? Today I die. What do you mean? I can't live without Yum Yum. This afternoon I perform the happy dispatch. No. Pardon me. I can't allow that. Why not? Why, hang it all, you're under contract to die by the hand of the public executioner in a month's time. If you kill yourself, what's to become of me? Why, I shall have to be executed in your place. It would certainly seem so. Now then, Lord Mayor, what is it? The Mikado and his suite are approaching the city and will be here in 10 minutes. The Mikado? He's coming to see whether his orders have been carried out. Now, look here, this is getting serious. A bargain's a bargain, and you really mustn't frustrate the ends of justice by committing suicide. A man of honour and a gentleman, you are bound to die ignominiously at the hands of the public executioner. Very well, then. Behead me. What? Now? Certainly. At once. Chop it off. Chop it off. My good sir, I don't go about prepared to execute gentlemen at a moment's notice. Why, I never even killed a bluebottle. Still you know Ko-Ko as Lord High Bluebottle, executioner. My good sir, as Lord High Executioner, I've got to behead him in a month. I'm not ready yet. I don't know how it's done. I'm going to take lessons. I mean to begin with a guinea pig and work my way through the animal kingdom till I come to a second trombone. Why, you don't suppose that as a humane man I'd have accepted the post of Lord High Executioner if I hadn't thought the duties were purely nominal? I can't kill you! I can't kill anything! I can't kill anybody! Come, my poor fellow. We all have unpleasant duties to discharge at times. After all, what is it? If I don't mind, why should you? Remember, sooner or later it must be done. Must it? I'm not so sure about that. What do you mean? Why should I kill you when making an affidavit that you've been executed will do just as well? Here are plenty of witnesses. The Lord Chief Justice, Lord High Admiral, Commander-in-Chief, Secretary of State for the Home Department, First Lord of the Treasury, and Chief Commissioner of Police. But where are they? There they are. They'll all swear to it, won't you? Am I to understand that all of us high officers of state are required to perjure ourselves to ensure your safety? Why not? You'll be grossly insulted, as usual. Will the insult be cash down or at a date? It will be a ready money transaction. Well, it will be a useful discipline. Very good. Choose your fiction, and I'll endorse it. Family pride. How do you like that, my buck? But I tell you that life without Yum-Yum will... Oh, Yum-Yum. Bother Yum-Yum. Here, Commissioner, go and fetch Yum-Yum. Take Yum-Yum and marry Yum-Yum, only go away and never come back again. Here she is. Yum-Yum, are you particularly busy?
Not particularly.
You've 5 minutes to spare?
Yes.
Then go along with His Grace, the Archbishop of Titty-Poo. He'll marry you at once.
But if I'm to be buried alive...
Now, don't ask questions, but do as I tell you, and Nanky Poo will explain all. I'll have a couple of horses ready for you at the back kitchen door, and as soon as you're married, gallop away and don't ever come back any more. But one moment, not for worlds. Here comes the Mikado. No doubt to ascertain whether I've obeyed his decree, and if he finds you alive, I shall have the greatest difficulty in persuading him that I've beheaded you. Whew. Close thing, that. Here he comes.
Surrundan tahan
From every kind of man obedience I expect. I'm the Emperor of Japan, and I'm his daughter-in-law elect. He'll marry his son, he's only got one, to his daughter-in-law elect. My morals have been declared particularly correct, but they're nothing at all compared with those of his daughter-in-law elect. Bow, bow to his daughter-in-law elect. Bow, bow to his daughter-in-law elect. In a fatherly kind of way, I govern each tribe and sect. All cheerfully own my sway, except his daughter-in-law elect. As tough as a bone, with a will of her own, is his daughter-in-law elect. My nature is love and light, my freedom from all defect is insignificant quite compared with his daughter-in-law elect. Bow, bow to his daughter-in-law elect. Bow, bow to his daughter-in-law elect. A more humane Mikado never did in Japan exist. To nobody's second I'd certainly reckon the true philanthropist. It is my very humane endeavour to make to some extent each evil liver a running river of harmless merriment. My object all sublime I shall achieve in time, to let the punishment fit the crime, the punishment fit the crime, and make each prisoner pent, unwillingly represent a source of innocent merriment, of innocent merriment. All prosy, dull society sinners who chatter and bleat and bore are sent to hear sermons from mystical Germans who preach from 10 till 4. The amateur tenor whose vocal villainies all desire to shirk shall during off hours exhibit his powers to Madame Tussauds waxwork. The lady who dyes a chemical yellow or stains her grey hair puce or pinches her figure is painted with figure and permanent walnut juice. The idiot who in railway carriages scribbles on window panes. We only suffer to ride on a buffer in parliamentary trains. My object all sublime I shall achieve in time, to let the punishment fit the crime, the punishment fit the crime, and make each prisoner pent, unwillingly represent a source of innocent merriment, of innocent merriment. His object all sublime he will achieve in time, to let the punishment fit the crime, the punishment fit the crime, and make each prisoner pent, unwillingly represent a source of innocent merriment, of innocent merriment. Advertising quack who wearies with tales of countless cures, his teeth I've enacted shall all be extracted by terrified amateurs. The music hall singer attends a series of masses and fugues and ops, by Bach interwoven with score of Beethoven and classical Monday pops. The billiard sharp whom anyone catches, his doom's extremely hard. He's made to dwell in a dungeon cell on a spot that's always barred, and there he plays extravagant extravagant matches in fiddler's finger stalls, on a cloth untrue with a twisted cue and elliptical billiard balls. My object all sublime I shall achieve in time, to let the punishment fit the crime, the punishment fit the crime, and make each prisoner pent, unwillingly represent a source of innocent merriment, of innocent merriment. His object all sublime he will achieve in time, to let the punishment fit the crime, the punishment fit the crime, and make each prisoner pent, unwillingly represent a source of innocent merriment, of innocent merriment. I am honoured in being permitted to welcome your Majesty. I guess the object of your Majesty's visit, your wishes have been attended to. The execution has taken place. Oh, you've had an execution, have you? Yes, the coroner has just handed me his certificate. I am the coroner, and this is the certificate of his death. Attitiudes, in the presence of the Lord Chancellor, Lord Chief Justice, Attorney General, Secretary of State for the Home Department, Lord Mayor, and groom of the second floor front. They were all present, Your Majesty. I counted them myself. Very good house. I wish I'd been in time for the performance. A tough fellow he was, too. A man of gigantic strength. His struggles were terrific. It was really a remarkable scene. Describe it. The criminal cried as he dropped him down in a state of wild alarm. With a frightful, frantic, fearful frown, I bared my big right arm. I seized him by his little pigtail, and on his knees fell he. As he squirmed and struggled and gurgled and guggled, I drew my sacred sleeve. My sacred sleeve. Oh, never shall I forget the cry, or the shriek that shrieked he. As I gnashed my teeth, when from its sheath I drew my sacred sleeve. Remember him well, he cannot tell a true or groundless tales. He always tries to utilize, and every time he fails.
He shivered and shook as he gave a sign for the stroke he didn't deserve. When all of a sudden his eye met mine, and it seemed to brace his nerve. For he nodded his head and kissed his hand, and whistled and added he. And the sabre drew, cut cleanly through his cervical vertebrae. His vertebrae. When a man's afraid, a beautiful maid is a cheering sight to see. And it's oh, I'm glad that moment sad was soothed by sight of me.
A terrible tale you can't assail, with truth it quite agrees. A taste exact for fondest act amounts to a disease. Now though you'd have said that head was dead, for its owner dead was he. It stood on its neck with a smile well bred, and bowed 3 times to me. It was none of your impudent offhand nods, but as humble as could be. For it clearly knew the deference due to a man of pedigree. Its oh, my vow, this deathly bow was a touching sight to see. though trunkless yet, it couldn't forget the deference due to me.
This haughty youth, he speaks the truth whenever he finds it pays, and in this case it all took place exactly as he says. Exactly as he says.
All this is very interesting, and I should like to have seen it, but we came about a totally different matter. A year ago, my son, the heir to the throne of Japan, bolted from our imperial court. Indeed. Had he any reason to be dissatisfied with his position?
None whatever. On the contrary, I was going to marry him. Yet he fled.
I am surprised that he should have fled from one so lovely.
That's not true.
No.
You hold that I am not beautiful because my face is plain. But you know nothing. You are still unenlightened. Learn, then, that it is not in the face alone that beauty is to be sought. My face is unattractive.
It is.
But I have a left shoulder blade that is a miracle of loveliness. People come miles to see it. My right elbow has a fascination that few can resist.
Allow me.
It is on view Tuesdays and Fridays on presentation of visiting card. As for my circulation, it is the largest in the world. Observe this ear.
Large.
Large? Enormous. But think of its delicate internal mechanism. It is fraught with beauty. As for this tooth, it almost stands alone. Many have tried to draw it, but in vain. I took this young man in hand and endeavoured to teach him my theory, but he was dull, and it took time. My theory is not learnt in a moment. It takes years to master. Just as the light was about to break upon this young man's darkened soul, he fled.
And yet he fled, and is now masquerading in this town, disguised as a second trombone. A second trombone? Yes. Would it be troubling you too much if I asked you to produce him? He goes by the name of
Nanki Poo.
Nanki Poo. Oh, it's quite easy. It's rather difficult. In point of fact, he's gone abroad. Gone abroad. His address. Kiev, I think.
Ha!
What's the matter?
See here, his name, Nanki Poo, beheaded this morning. Oh, where shall I find another? Where shall I find another?
Dear, 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 this is very tiresome. My poor fellow, in your anxiety to carry out my wishes, you have beheaded the heir to the throne of Japan.
I beg to offer an unqualified apology.
I desire to associate myself with that expression of regret.
We really hadn't the least notion.
Of course you hadn't. How could you? Come, come, my good fellow. Don't distress yourself. It was no fault of yours. If a man of exalted rank chooses to disguise himself as a second trombone, he must take the consequences. It really distresses me to see you take on so. I've no doubt he thoroughly deserved all he got. We are infinitely obliged to your majesty.
Much obliged, your majesty.
Very much obliged, your majesty. Obliged? Not a bit. Don't mention it. How could you tell? Oh, of course we couldn't tell who the gentleman really was. We couldn't know that he was the heir apparent.
It wasn't written on his forehead, you know.
It might have been on his pocket handkerchief, but I suppose the heir apparent doesn't use pocket handkerchiefs, especially not when disguised as a second trombone. I forget the punishment for compassing the death of the heir apparent.
Punishment?
Yes. Something lingering with boiling oil in it, I fancy. Something of that sort. I think boiling oil occurs in it, but I'm not sure. I know it's something humorous, but lingering. If either boiling oil or melted lead. Come, don't fret. I'm not a bit angry.
If your majesty would accept our assurance, we had no idea.
Of course.
I knew nothing about it.
I wasn't there. Oh, that's the pathetic part of it. Unfortunately, the fool of an act says compassing the death of the heir apparent. There's not a word about a mistake.
No.
Or not knowing.
No.
Or having no notion.
No.
Or not being there.
No.
There should be, of course.
Yes.
But there isn't.
Oh.
That's the slovenly way in which these acts are always drawn. However, cheer up. It'll be all right. I'll have it altered next session. Now, let's see about your execution. Will after luncheon suit you? Can you wait till then?
Oh, yes. We can wait till then.
I don't want any lunch. Then we'll make it after luncheon. I'm really very sorry for you all, but it's an unjust world, and virtue is triumphant only in theatrical performances. See how the fates their gifts unlocked. For A is happy, B is not, yet B is worthy, I dare say, of more prosperity than A. Is B more worthy? I should say he's worth a great deal more than A. Yet A is happy, oh so happy, laughing ha ha, chuffing ha ha, nectar buffing ha ha, ever joyous, ever gay, happy undeserving A, ever joyous, ever gay, happy undeserving A. If I were fortune, which I'm not,
B should enjoy a happy lot, and A should die in misery. That is assuming I am B. But should A perish, that should be, of course, assuming I am B. B should be happy, oh so happy, laughing, ha ha, shouting, ha ha, nectar quaffing, ha ha ha. But of them to die is T. Wretched meritorious be, but of them to die is he. Wretched meritorious be.
Well, a nice mess you've got us into, with your nodding head and the deference due to a man of pedigree. Merely a corroborative detail intended to give artistic verisimilitude to an otherwise bald and unconvincing narrative.
Corroborative detail, indeed. Corroborative fiddlestick.
And you're just as bad as he is with your cock and bull stories about catching his eye and his whistling an air. And that's so like you. You must put in your oar. Yes, well, you can't say much, Ko-Ko. Look at that rubbish about your big right arm. Look at it.
Yes, and your snicker-snee.
Well, never mind that now. There's only one thing to be done. Nanky Poo hasn't started yet. He must come to life again at once. Ah, here he comes. Here, Nanky Poo, I've good news for you. You're reprieved. Oh, but it's too late. I'm a dead man, and I'm off for my honeymoon. Nonsense! A terrible thing has just happened. It seems you're the son of the Mikado. Yes, but that happened some time ago. Is this a time for airy persiflage? Your father is here, and with Katisha. My father? And with Katisha? Yes, he wants you particularly. So does she.
Oh, but he's married now.
But bless my heart, what has that to do with it? Katisha claims me in marriage, but I can't marry her because I'm married already. Consequently, she will insist on my execution, and if I'm executed, my wife will have to be buried alive.
You see our difficulty.
Yes, I don't know what's to be done. There's one chance for you. If you could persuade Katisha to marry you, she would have no further claim on me. And in that case, I could come to life without any fear of being put to death. I marry Katisha?
I really think it's the only course.
My good girl, have you seen her? She's something appalling.
But that's only her face. She has a left elbow, which people come miles to see.
I am told that her right heel is much admired by connoisseurs. My good sir, I decline to pin my heart upon any lady's right heel. It comes to this. While Katisha is single, I prefer to be a disembodied spirit. When Katisha is married, existence will be as welcome as the flowers in spring. The flowers that bloom in the spring, tra-la, brief promise of merry sunshine. As we merrily dance and we sing, tra-la, we welcome the hope that they bring, tra-la, of a summer of roses and wine, of a summer of roses and wine. And that's what we mean when we say that a thing is welcome as flowers that bloom in the spring. Tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la, the flowers that bloom in the spring. Tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la. The flowers that bloom in the spring, tra-la, have nothing to do with the case.
I've got to take under my wing, tra-la, a most unattractive old thing, tra-la, with a caricature of a face, with a caricature of a face. And that's what I mean when I say or I sing. Oh, bother the flowers that bloom in the spring, tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la, oh, bother the flowers of spring. Tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la-la. My soul is still my body's prisoner. Remove the peace that death alone can give. My doom to wait, my punishment to live. Hearts do not break, they sting and ache. For old love's sake, but do not die. Though with each breath they long for death, as witnesseth the living eye, the living eye. Oh, living eye, come tell me why, when hope is gone, dost thou stay on? Why linger here where all is real? Oh, living eye, come tell me why, when hope is gone, dost thou stay on? May not a cheated maiden die? May not a cheated hearts do not break. If I mistake, why sleep and wake to lifelong gloom? If love betrayed can kill a maid, as poets have said, where is thy tomb? Where is thy tomb? Oh, lifelong gloom, dark demon whom in dread I shun, go lovely one, come heaven shore, come grave obscure. Oh, lifelong gloom, dark demon whom in dread I shun, go lovely one, come relatively cheerful tomb, come relatively cheerful tomb.
Katisha, the miscreant who robbed me of my love. But vengeance pursues. They are heating the cauldron. Katisha, behold, a suppliant at your feet. Katisha, mercy, mercy! Had you mercy on him? See here, you have slain my love. He did not love me, but he would have loved me in time. I am an acquired taste. Only the educated palate can appreciate me. I was educating his palate when he left me. Well, he is dead, and where shall I find another? It takes years to train a man to love me. Am I to go through the weary round again, and at the same time implore mercy for you who robbed me of my my pupil, just as his education was on the point of completion? Oh, where shall I find another? Here! What? Katisha, for years I have loved you with a white-hot passion that is slowly but surely consuming my very vitals. Shrink not from me. If there is aught of woman's mercy in your heart, turn not away from a lovesick suppliant whose every fibre thrills at your tiniest touch. True it is that, under a poor mask of disgust, I have endeavoured to conceal a passion whose inner fires are broiling the soul within me. But the fire will not be smothered. It defies all attempts at extinction, and, breaking forth all the more eagerly for its long restraint, it declares itself in words that will not be weighed, that cannot be schooled, that should not be too severely criticised. Katisha, I dare not hope for your love, but I will not live without it. Darling, you, whose hands still reek with the blood of my betrothed, dare to address words of passion to the woman you have so foully wronged. I do. Accept my love, or I perish on the spot. Go to, who knows so well as I that no one ever yet died of a broken heart.
You know not what you say. Listen. On a tree by a river, a little tom-tit sang willow, tit willow, tit willow. And I said to him, Dicky bird, why do you sit singing willow, tit willow, tit willow? Is it weakness of intellect, birdie, I cried, or a rather tough worm in your little inside, with a shake of his poor little head? He replied, oh, willow, tit willow, tit willow. He slapped at his chest as he sat on that bough, singing willow, tit willow, tit willow. And a cold perspiration bespangled his brow. Oh, willow, tit willow, tit willow. He sobbed and he sighed, and a gurgle he gave. Then he plunged himself into the billowy wave, and an echo arose from the suicide's grave. Willow, tit willow, tit willow. how I feel just as sure as I'm sure that my name isn't Willow, Titwillow, Titwillow. That 'twas blighted affection that made him exclaim, "Oh, Willow, Titwillow, Titwillow." And if you remain callous and obdurate, I shall perish as he did, and you will know why, though I probably shall not exclaim as I die. Oh, Willow, Titwillow, Titwillow.
Did he really die of love?
He really did.
Or on account of a cruel little hen?
Yes.
Poor little chap.
It's an affecting tale, and quite true. I knew the bird intimately.
Did you? He must have been very fond of her.
His devotion was something extraordinary.
Poor little chap. And if I refuse you, will you go and do the same?
At once?
No, you mustn't. Anything but that. Oh, I'm a silly little goose.
You are.
And you won't hate me because I'm just a little teensy-weensy wee bit bloodthirsty, will you?
Hate you? Oh, Katisha, is there not beauty even in bloodthirstiness?
My idea exactly. There is beauty in the bellow of the blast, there is grandeur in the growling of the gale, there is eloquent outpouring of the lion's roaring, and the tiger is a lashing of his tail.
Yes, I'd like to see a tiger from the Congo to the Niger, and especially when lashing of his tail.
Volcanoes are as splendid and as grim, and earthquakes only terrify the dolls, but to him is scientific, there is nothing that's terrific in the falling of a flight of thunderbolts.
Yes, in spite of all my meekness, if I have a little weakness, it's a passion for a flight of thunderbolts. If that is so, sing derry down derry, it's evident very our tastes are one. Away we'll go and merrily marry, nor tarry till day is done. There is beauty in extreme old age. Do you fancy you're elderly enough? Information I'm requesting on a subject interesting is a maiden all the better when she's tough.
Oh, at this one time it's a general opinion that she'll last a good deal longer when she's tough.
Are you old enough to marry, do you think? Won't you wait until you're 80 in the shade? There's a fascination frantic in a ruin that's romantic. Do you think you are sufficiently decayed?
To the matter that you mentioned, I have given some attention. I think I am sufficiently decayed.
If that is so, sing derry down derry, it's evident very our tastes are one. Away we'll go and merrily marry, or tarry till day is done. If that is so, sing derry down derry, it's evident very our tastes are one. Away we'll go and merrily marry, or tarry till day is done. Sing derry down derry, we'll merrily marry, or tarry till day is done. Now then, we've had a capital lunch, and we're quite ready. Have all the painful preparations been made? Your Majesty, all is prepared. Then produce the unfortunate gentleman and his two well-meaning but misguided accomplices.
Mercy! Mercy for Ko-Ko! Mercy for Bitty Sing! Mercy even for Pooh-Bah.
I beg your pardon. I don't think I quite caught that remark. Mercy even for Pooh-Bah.
Mercy! My husband that was to have been is dead, and I have just married this miserable object.
Oh, you've not been long about it. We were married after lunch, before the registrar. I am the after-luncheon registrar. I see. But my difficulty is that, as you have slain the heir apparent...
The heir apparent is not slain.
Bless my heart!
My son!
And your daughter-in-law elected.
Traitor! You have deceived me!
Time. Yes, you are entitled to a little explanation, but I think he will give it better whole than in pieces. Your Majesty, it's like this. It is true that I stated that I had killed Nanky Poo. Yes, with most affecting particulars. Merely a corroborative detail intended to give artistic verisimilitude to a bold and... Will you refrain from putting your oar in? It's like this. When your Majesty says, let a thing be done, it's as good as done. Practically, it is done, because your Majesty's will is law. Your Majesty says, kill a gentleman, and a gentleman is told off to be killed. Consequently, that gentleman is as good as dead. Practically, he is dead. And if he is dead, why not say so? I see. Nothing could possibly be more satisfactory.
For he's gone and married Yum Yum.
Yum yum,
Your anger may bury, for all will be merry. I think you had better succumb
come come,
and join our expressions of glee.
On this subject I pray you be dumb.
come come,
Your notions, though many, are not worth a penny. The word for your guidance is mum.
mum mum.
You've a very good bargain in me.
On this subject we pray you be dumb, dumb, dumb. We think you had better succumb, come come. You'll find there are many who went for a penny, who went for a penny. There are lots of good fish in the sea, there are lots of good fish in the sea. There's lots of good fish in the sea. There's lots of good fish in the sea, the sea, the sea, the sea, the sea.
The threatened cloud has passed away.
And shines a dawning day.
Though the night may come too soon.
With years and years of afternoon.
Then let the frogs with laughing song. Let the frogs with laughing song and merry dance. With laughing song. With joyous shout and ringing gin. In longer rate than you go in. And joyous shout and ringing gin. In longer rate than you go in. And joyous shout and ringing gin. With song
the sun whose rays are all ablaze with ever-living glory, does not deny his majesty, he scorns to tell a story. He won't exclaim, I blush for shame, so kindly be indulgent, but fierce and bold in fiery gold, his glory's all effulgent. I mean to rule the earth as he the sky. We really know our worth, the sun and I mean to rule the earth as he the sky. We really know our worth, the sun and I.